Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas W. Case, American poet and author, and tonight I will be reading from my book, Aluminum Cowboys Poems and Short Stories. It's available on Amazon.com. I'll be reading a little bit of the short story Whoops, There Was a Time Without the Internet, a poem, and Under My Bed, a poem. And if you like strange stories and good times, here it is. This is called Whoops. One Monday morning, when I was 9 years old, I woke up with a stomachache. Mom decided to keep me home from school. Coincidentally, when I went upstairs and told my brother Toby that I was sick and didn't have to go to school, he didn't feel well either, and quickly let Mom know. She went to work and left us home alone, but not before she poked and prodded all the available orifices in our heads. We began to feel much better after her departure. Mom was a teacher by trade and taught us a lot. She always said, "Look both ways when crossing the street and be careful of stray dogs, they could have rabies." And most often she said, "Beware of strangers." She always went on and on about the dangers that loomed and lay in wait for nice, innocent children. Often I thought someone might kidnap me at breakfast, or that I would be struck by lightning if I walked in the rain. We lived in a large two-story house on Des Moines' west side. It had an attic and a big unfinished basement, complete with cobwebs and secret passages. A child could get lost in that house. Mom lived there when she was a little girl with her mother and grandmother. Once a month, she would get out the old family photo albums. Toby and I would sit next to her on the gaudy gold couch, dotted with cigarette burns. In all of Mom's warnings, one thing she never said was, "Watch out for taking too much Valium. You could fall asleep with a cigarette in your hand and burn the house down." As she turned the tattered pages, she'd say, "There's your great Aunt Betty. She was what they called a blue baby. Had heart problems, poor little thing." I solemnly looked over at Tobe. He bared his teeth like a nasty little chihuahua with mange, then smiled and stuck his tongue out. The pages were yellow and smelled of mothballs. The pictures were black and white. Everyone looked grim and ghastly, and most of the people had long since passed away. A paper graveyard, frightening, final. To make matters worse, Mom told us stories about our relatives in the pictures. One in particular still haunts my mind. Our cousin Dorothy hanged herself and then apparently appeared at the front of her mother's bed saying, "Help me, Mom." This vivid imagery didn't make for peaceful slumber. Mom used to wake us up early on Sunday mornings. She dragged us to the nursing home to see Grandma Nellie. One day, a thin, chalk-skinned, ancient-looking woman with no teeth and huge pale eyes grabbed Toby and pulled him close, saying, "Oh, Billy, you finally come for me. I got you now, Billy boy, and you're not getting away." Toby cried and screamed like a little baby. As I recall, he spat at her. He's looked on the elderly with suspicion ever since. I remember an old scary, white-haired lady used to live next door. Toby and I would visit her for candy and cookies, besides the heavenly sugar buzz. We were drawn to her macabre stories, even though they gave us nightmares. Her name was Mrs. Sweet, although she was anything but. Mrs. Sweet and her husband, who had passed away some years before, owned a funeral parlor, and she used to tell us in vivid detail of how the various citizens of her country bumpkin town met their demise, and how she had spent long hours preparing little Jim Bob for the viewing after he'd been killed by a sow on the farm. His mama warned him over and over. She told him that a sow turns vicious when she has a litter of piglets. But he couldn't help himself. He loved those babies. They intrigued him so. Poor Jimmy, she said, as she shook her head. A terrible odor permeated Mrs. Sweet's kitchen, where we sat and listened to her sordid tales. Later, we found out that the smell was cheap wine, wild Irish rose to be exact, and when she drank too much, she cursed like a sailor. The second time she told us the pig story, she said, "That big old sow was rooting around in the mud and mire in the corral away from her piglets. Well, that sneaky son of a bitch, Jim Bob, thought he'd grab one and play with it. Poor bastard didn't know what hit him. She nearly chewed off his arm. Bit a big old hole in the side of his neck, she did. That's what killed him. Poor little shit." Toby and I used to have long, drawn-out conversations on whether or not she was a witch, and when and how she would attempt to kill us. Poison cookies? Candy? Maybe she'd have a rabid pig with 6-inch fangs devour us in our sleep. Back then, Toby thought that every woman with gray hair was a witch or a psychopathic axe murderer. So there we were, alone in our creepy old house with a dark basement and foreboding attic. We fixed cereal for breakfast and then tiptoed to the living room, glancing over our shoulder the whole way, half expecting to see a zombie or ghost following us. We flipped down in front of the TV, turned the channel to Scooby-Doo, and covered up with blankets to our chins. Although Scooby-Doo was comical, it had its darker moments. "Did you hear that?" Toby said. "What?" I asked. "Someone knocked at the door," he said. My heart thumped in my chest. I listened attentively. I didn't hear anything. I murmured. There was a moment of silence that seemed like an eternity. Then came the unmistakable knock, knock, knock on the side door. We looked at each other, our eyes big and frozen. All right, I'll stop there. If you want to hear the rest of it, the book is on Amazon, as well as my other books. I'll do a poem now. This one's called "There Was a Time Without the Internet." I hate these fucking gnats. My apartment is clean, not sterile, but it's where the heart is. The floor is swept, the dishes are done, but these fucking gnats bother me constantly. I clap my hands together, occasionally killing one or two, and then I'm grateful that God doesn't do that to me. I'm trying to write, and these tiny flying buzzards won't leave me alone. Then a moth bombards me, fluttering around my head and ears, and I think, what's that son of a bitch going to do to my Irish whaling sweater? It's 50% wool. $70. I kill it. Dusty bastard. I feel gratitude that God doesn't do that to me. Don't these flying bugs die when it gets cold? I open a window. Late October. Maybe there hasn't been a frost yet. I kill a gnat. Perhaps I'd be safer outside. I need to do some research. All right, and this last poem I'm going to do is called "Under My Bed." We all find company in strange places. My alter ego, Thomas, seems to have the same problem I do. He's in the hospital withdrawing from alcohol and has politicians taking refuge under his bed. The lice in Donald Trump's hair have demanded rice for breakfast, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Bernie Sanders is under there clamoring free medical care for everybody, but every time I put the nurse's light on and tell them what's going on, they say no one's under the bed. I think they're in on it. If this doesn't stop, the doctors will think I'm crazy. But we know who the crazy ones are, right? Little comical relief in the horrendous old times of withdrawing from booze. It's 3 years sober next month, and I'm very grateful. The book, Aluminum Cowboys, Poems and Short Stories, is on Amazon.com, as well as Sleep Always Calls. It's just a hop, skip, and jump to the Madhouse and Seedy Town Blues. And if you like the channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much. See you in about 2 weeks with another longer video.